and our concerns about the lack of action by our public officials and our institutions. All along the way, the community has stepped up with our whistles, with our cell phones, and with our bodies to defend our neighbors. But what do we see from our public officials? They have utterly failed us. And so we're going to be talking today about the various groups of public officials and institutions that have not done their job. And these, of course, include the Minneapolis Police Department, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the Hennepin County Commission, and even the state court system. So we'll be talking about all of those things today to talk about the need for them to step up and do their part. Someday this thing is going to be over. And when it is, we will remember who stood with us. We will remember who stood against us. And mostly, we will remember who didn't stand at all. So with that, we will call up our first speaker, Nekima Levy-Armstrong. She's a civil rights attorney. She is the founder of the Racial Justice Network and a very powerful speaker. So with that, let's recognize Nekima.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. As Michelle just intimated, we have experienced the largest deployment of ICE agents in U.S. history here in the state of Minnesota. We know that the number of ICE agents who have been deployed here far outweigh the amount of so-called illegal immigration that happens here. The state of Minnesota has been intentionally targeted by the Trump administration, and they have made no secret of the fact that they are continuing to assert their authority. They're continuing to brutalize people in the community. They are violating people's constitutional rights. They are terrorizing women, children, and families. And up to this point, they have gotten away with it. How has it been over a month since the brutal killing of Renee Good at the hands of ICE agent Jonathan Ross? Yet we have seen not a single arrest. We have seen protection for Jonathan Ross. And then what happened a couple of weeks later? We saw the brutal killing of Alex Preddy. We have not seen an arrest of those two federal agents who killed Alex Preddy. What we saw was the federal government attempting to cover up a murder by removing those federal agents from the state of Minnesota, helping them to secure their freedom. What else have we heard? Lies from the federal government. And I'm intentionally saying lies because, unfortunately, too often we soften the language of what is actually happening. We need to understand we're dealing with lies, we're dealing with fascism, we're dealing with authoritarianism, and it cannot stand. Because our elected officials, unfortunately, have failed us by capitulating to the Trump administration, it has resulted in the people protecting the people of the state of Minnesota, having to literally put their bodies, their lives, and their livelihoods on the line, and resulting in the arrests and charges against dozens of innocent Minnesotans who are not coming out with high-powered weapons like ICE is, who are not coming out with flashbang grenades and tear gas. They're coming out with whistles and their voices. But instead of being respected and being valued, they are being criticized, charged, and told that they're engaging in unlawful assemblies. This is unacceptable. We expected Governor Walz to stand up for the people, to call for the arrests of those who killed Jonathan Ross and Renee Good, but have we once heard the governor call for an arrest of those killers? Have we once heard the governor call for an arrest of any ICE agents who have violated Minnesota law, our Constitution, and our rights? No, we have not. What we have seen is him coming before the camera, begging the federal government to please end the surge, and trying to soften the seriousness of this war that has been waged upon Minnesota residents. We have seen the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, claim that no agreement was made with Tom Homan And yet the very next day, after Tom Homan thanked Governor Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Hennepin County Sheriff DeWanna Witt, we saw a violent arrest take place right here in the plaza of the Government Center of two people who were criminal defendants. They did not get their day in court. They did not receive due process. What they received were Hennepin County Sheriff's deputies cooperating with ICE and handing these people over. They have been charged with crimes. They have not been convicted of crimes. And then what just happened yesterday to a teenager in this community who is being charged with a crime? A chaotic arrest right here in the Hennepin County Government Center. We believe that it is no coincidence that these arrests are happening in the wake of Tom Homan thanking our elected officials. We want clarity, we want transparency, and we want honesty. We know we're not going to get it from the federal government, and we don't expect it at this point. But we do expect better and different from the leaders of Minnesota who vowed to protect and serve the people of Minnesota and not to continue hiding whatever has happened behind closed doors. They also, although I have significant concerns about Hennepin County Sheriff DeWanna Witt, I voted for her, thinking that she would do better for the residents of Hennepin County. I do not want her to simply be a scapegoat in all of this. She is a part of the problem because she has not been honest about whatever was agreed upon. Her Hennepin County Sheriff's deputies have been cooperating with ICE from the beginning, and she has gone on record talking about these issues. But there are three of them who Tom Homan thanked: the governor, the attorney general, and the Hennepin County Sheriff. They all need to be held accountable. They all need to be transparent. And they all need to stand up for the residents of Hennepin County and the state of Minnesota and stop cowering and capitulating to the Trump administration. We deserve better. We deserve protection. We deserve for our laws and our Constitution to be upheld. And we deserve for ICE to leave Minnesota immediately. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nekima. The Central neighborhood has been one of the hardest hit neighborhoods in terms of this ICE siege. Those folks in that neighborhood are out there every single day taking care of their neighbors. And now we will hear from Sarah Lochner, who will talk about their efforts and what's going on now with ICE in their neighborhood. Recognize Sarah.
Hi. Tell me if you can't hear me. I don't talk very loud. My story goes back a ways. My father was born in Berlin in 1899. He was not a German citizen because his parents were immigrants fleeing pogroms in what's now Ukraine. Being Jewish, he faced mild prejudice as a child, but he was intensely loyal to his homeland. He served in a youth corps in World War I. He joined the National Association of German Jews. He became a physician in the 20s, and after a lengthy and legal application process, he did become a naturalized citizen on the last day of 1931. He watched with unease and then growing horror when Hitler came to power. And indeed, 2 years later, his citizenship was revoked, and once again he was stateless. My father left Germany in late 1938 after his parents were deported to Poland, and after he was arrested on Kristallnacht, he left by the skin of his teeth. Before Hitler, my father had never had any reason to fear or disparage the Kripo, the Kriminalpolizei. Like most, he'd grown up regarding them as a necessary component of civic life, assisting the innocent, investigating thefts and murders. But once Hitler came to power, first the brown shirts, then the SS caused havoc in the streets, and the Kripo stood aside. And then they assimilated, and then they became a branch of the Gestapo. Unlike my father, I came up knowing that law enforcement was too often on the wrong side of history. During the civil rights movement and the decades after, I was all too aware of the racism and corruption in law enforcement. This moment, though, feels different. A kind of turning point, not because of the fact that more of us people of privilege are experiencing the brutality, but because law enforcement, even when they say they're there to protect us, can be seen as allowing and even enabling the lawless agents of a lawless government. How can we ever reform that? How could trust ever be established after that? When immigrants are snatched away without due process, when citizens are tear-gassed, brutalized, murdered, law enforcement stands aside. Sometimes they simply do not show up, or they come and unfurl caution tape and then stand inside it with ICE, with CBP, with ERO. It looks like complicity. It looks like assimilation. And then they arrest the protesters. The very least they could do is not arrest us. It feels hauntingly familiar. We don't need words, empty words of support, empty promises to protect the citizens. We need actions of solidarity, and we need them now.
So people in Central neighborhood have worked very hard, and in neighborhoods across the city and across the state, to defend our neighbors and to try to bring some measure of normalcy to our communities through things like mutual aid, grocery deliveries, things of that nature. People are working very hard, but where are our public officials? Nowhere to be found, really. Despite a policy 9-401 that the community worked with the Minneapolis police on related to their interactions in immigration situations, despite that policy requiring them to intercede if ICE agents engage in excessive force, that has not happened even once in this city. Has not happened even once. And in fact, the Minneapolis police helped to escort both the killer of Renee Good and Alex Preddy from the scene. So they are clearly not interested in helping the community. The Hennepin County Commission was given every opportunity to step up. We took to them, a group of us, a petition, a proposed separation ordinance that we presented to them that they have failed to even act on. So they don't even want to put any space between themselves and ICE when they could have done that all along. The Minnesota Judicial Council is the organization that makes the rules for the courthouses in the state. So you'll recall that when COVID came down, they're the group that closed down the courthouses. They made the rules, and that's their job. We presented to them back on January 2nd a petition asking them to ban ICE from courthouses unless they have a judicial warrant. Have they done that? No. Didn't they had a meeting on January 15th, didn't even have it on their agenda. Now, why is that? Again, another failure by a public safety organization. And now I want to talk a little bit about the Hennepin County Sheriff, Dewana Witt. Not only is the Sheriff's Office engaged and in league with ICE in the streets, because every time we see people protest, and I won't forget what I saw after the murder of Alex Preddy, of people coming to the street, getting on their knees and raising their hands and saying, "Don't shoot," and getting subjected to chemical weaponry, military-grade chemical weaponry, by both ICE and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. And then the state troopers came in and helped them with that. So we keep seeing these examples where these agencies who take our tax money that are supposed to protect us, turning around and siding with ICE. And now we're being told that Dewana Witt has this terrible dilemma that she's thinking through and thinking about in terms of maybe ICE will go away if I let them in my jails. First of all, the people in jails, unless they've gone through a trial, they are innocent people. Because when you're in a jail, you haven't gone to trial yet, and it's the government's responsibility to prove you guilty. And so those folks in that jail are innocent to start with. But beyond that, I question whether the sheriff has the authority to give away our constitutional rights. Why is she in the New York Times in an article having this very sympathetic article? Oh, you know, she's trying to decide if maybe she gives some of these people's rights away, then ICE will go away and stop harming the rest of the people. You cannot make those kinds of deals with the devil. You cannot make those type of deals with the devil. You can't. And by the way, it's not her deal to make, because she doesn't have the authority to give away our constitutional rights, anyone's constitutional rights, including those in the jails. And so I want you to keep those things in mind, because it is outrageous that this conversation is even happening. And with that, we will now hear from Robin with MIRAC. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Michelle, for inviting MIRAC. My name's Robin, R-O-B-Y-N. Harbison is spelled H-A-R-B-I-S-O-N. I'm a member of the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee. I have just a few words for Sheriff Witt and Governor Walz. So here goes. Sheriff Witt, you set a standard for the state and the rest of the country for your response to ICE. Shame on you and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. Grow a backbone. We know you've been for protecting property over people and our lives, but just pretend like you give a little of a damn. If you want to lock up criminals, start with the killer agents Jonathan Ross, who killed Renee Good, the agents that killed Alex Preddy, and the pedophiles in the White House. Immigration is not a crime, and any attempt by our government to criminalize immigrants must be seen for what it really is, the racist attempt to whiten the U.S. We sure as hell won't take it lying down. Governor Walz, you are absolutely a sellout, and we are not falling for it. Like Frey, no one comes out of a meeting with Tom Homan or Donald Trump with all parties satisfied without capitulating and ignoring the felt needs and demands of the people. Who we are dealing with, the Trump administration, are nothing but criminals, and we must treat them as so. There is no reforming this system. Immigration policy as it exists is the problem, and we will not give any credibility to their criminal narrative. No one is illegal, and legalization for all. Immigration doesn't have to be a social issue, but this is exactly what the ruling class has wanted and has planned for since the formation of the Department of Homeland Security and ICE in 2003. If this is what you think the job of governor requires, you are wrong. Push for something that will actually protect us, because this is bottom of the barrel effort for you. So we'll continue to demand more, to continue showing up at Governor Walz's mansion, his office. It doesn't matter what it takes. Same with Sheriff Witt's office in City Hall. We demand an end to the 287G agreement. Whether it means the government shuts down, immigrant lives are more important. And finally, MIRAC is having an event Sunday the 15th from 12 to 1 at this corner of Central Ave and Lowry in Northeast to demand legalization for all and end to all deportations. We hope to see you there and seeing you on the streets. Thank you.
And now we will hear from Kate Haviland, who represents Indivisible Twin Cities, an organization that's both been on the ground and in the State House trying to demand the kinds of changes that we need so that we can end this ICE surge and go, back to some semblance of a normal life while still defending our immigrant neighbors. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. I'm Kate Haviland, K-A-T-E, Haviland, H-A-V as in victory, E-L-I-N, Indivisible Twin Cities. Today is day 72 of the federal government's war against Minnesota. We didn't start this war. We don't want it, but we're in it. In this time of occupation, it is essential that we have local law enforcement that is standing to protect us, we the people. Unfortunately, Hennepin County Sheriff Dewana Witt says her number one job is to protect everyone in the county. And yet she is choosing to cooperate with ICE. Her talk of cooperating with Tom Homan, the current commander of Operation Metro Surge, does not protect us. The Hennepin County Sheriff's Department should not be cooperating with federal agents who have repeatedly shown that they ignore laws, injure and kill people, and spread terror throughout our communities. On Saturday, Hennepin County sheriffs outside the Whipple building were once again roughly arresting people who were protesting ICE. Sheriff Witt's deputies are not protecting us from federal agents. Rather, they are assisting ICE. Yesterday, unidentified federal agents in street clothes again chased and captured people right in this government center. There were people out there in this building who needed to use their whistles. We shouldn't need whistles in the government center. This is a place supposedly of laws. They've taken people who were here for court hearings, who were going through the judicial process. Video shows a sheriff's deputy following, in a sense, sort of escorting the unidentified agents who were taking the man captured out of the building. He ended up in a Subaru. Those agents, if they were agents, they didn't have uniforms. They didn't have IDs. They didn't have name tags. They didn't have a warrant, seemingly. And yet the sheriff's deputy helped them go out the building with an 18-year-old guy who didn't get his day in court. Our sheriff's deputies should not be helping rogue ICE agents who don't show warrants, who don't identify themselves, and don't obey laws. We are asking Sheriff Witt to stop cooperating with ICE. Don't do ICE's work for them. Stand and protect us, the people, from ICE.
It's so important that we are here calling on our public officials and institutions to stand up for the community. We are in, as Kate said, day 72. So we've been 2 months into this entire siege, and yet we still do not see these public officials taking meaningful actions to defend the community. And in fact, some of them, like the Hennepin County sheriffs, are in bed with the ICE agents. And we do see them showing up now at the Hennepin County Government Center right here where our courthouses are, and snatching people away before they can even have a trial. And part of the issue with that is not only does it strip them of their due process, but it means that if there are any victims, those victims never see their day in court either. And that's deeply unfair. This is a violation of our system. It is not how things are supposed to work. People should get their trials, and then if they are found guilty, they should get their punishment, but there should not be ICE snatching people out and deporting them to other countries where nothing will ever happen, and that person that was the victim will never get justice. This is wrong. And now I introduce to you Jay Yates with Twin Cities Coalition for Justice, an organization that's been on the ground doing enormous amounts of work around this issue and many other issues of policing as well. And so with that, welcome Jay Yates.
Hello, my name is Jay. I'm with the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice. In an attempt to maintain order, there is a campaign to gaslight the people of Minnesota. This effort is bipartisan. On one hand, we have Tom immediately. I also want to remind our electors for us. We pay your salaries. We got you into those seats. And so you continuing to fail us and failing to protect us, we will remember this the next election cycle. And rest assured, you will not be in these positions any longer. Thank you.
And our final speaker before we open up the floor for questions is Trahern Cruz with Black Lives Matter Minnesota, yet another organization that's been on the ground, working hard for people and fighting for justice. Trahern?
Last week, the Status Quo in Washington, or the White House, tweeted an image of our last week, the White House tweeted a racist image of President Obama and Michelle Obama. These aren't just tweets. These type of tweets lead to policy decisions. And so that's why we're demanding a hate crime at the local, anti-black hate crime legislation at the local, state, and federal level. The status quo in Washington is using racist rhetoric from the 60s to describe protesters here in Minnesota. George Wallace and they're labeling peaceful protesters as agitators. George Wallace, as Alabama governor, used the term outside agitators during the 1960s to dismiss civil rights activists as troublemakers, communists, or non-residents, often or called paid outsiders, responsible for racial unrest. He argued these individuals caused major friction, claiming local black citizens were content with segregation, which justified harsh police response to demonstrations like in Selma. The term was used to discredit, demonize, and minimize the legitimacy of local demands for civil rights by framing them as artificially manufactured by external forces, when it was coming from the local community, like the demands you hear today are coming from our local community. It allows Southern segregationists to portray racial tensions as an import from Northern communist or liberal agents, distracting from the systemic injustice of segregation. By identifying activists as dangerous outsiders, it helped justify, rationalize, and authorize law enforcement actions against protesters. Wallace often referred to continued agitation and demonstration led and directed by outsiders to order intense, often violent police presence, which we continue to see on the ground here in Minnesota for the last 70 days. We want ICE out of our community now. Now, not tomorrow. We want reparations now at the local, state, and federal level. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you. What questions do we have? Anybody?
What sort of actions would you like to see, let's say, the MPD or the state patrol taking on?
Well, first of all, the MPD should abide by their own policy 9-401, which requires them to intercede when they see excessive force by ICE or other federal agents. Not once has an ICE agent been arrested for excessive force. Not once in either city, but particularly not in Minneapolis. And yet we have roughly 30 people facing federal charges, serious federal charges, for simply being good neighbors, being out there with their cameras, being out there with their whistles and watching what's going on. You know, this is what has happened is that we literally have 30 people that we have to defend from federal charges. And that is not a small matter, by the way. It's very expensive to do that. The community is raising funds to be able to defend our neighbors who have stepped up to do this work. We're not going to let them be out on their own. We're going to take care of them. But again, it's us doing it. And the public officials sit in their offices. They get paid to do what they should be doing, and yet they are doing nothing except selling us out in many cases. You know, the idea that DeWanna Witt thinks that she can make a deal to sell out some people's rights, that's not a deal she gets to make. We have no provision to allow her to sell out other people's rights. There's no such deal as that.
What would you want your members of Congress to do right now?
Well, members of Congress have an important decision to make related to funding, and you guys can come on up if you want to talk about this stuff as well. They have an important decision to make related to funding. They should completely defund ICE. There is no reason for ICE to exist. It needs to be gone. So we are calling for them to defund. I don't want to hear about any deals with body cameras or take their masks off and make them wear badges. That's stuff that should have already happened, because if they claim to be law enforcement agents, you know, there's no situation in which law enforcement gets to go incognito everywhere they go in every arrest situation. That should not exist. And so, you know, those kinds of silly, you know, oh, we'll make them wear body cameras. How has that helped us with police killings?
Do you feel like your local congresspeople have been outspoken enough?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Do you feel like your local congresspeople have been outspoken enough about this?
I don't, and Nakima, I was going to see if you want to talk. You know, we attended a congressional hearing that happened at the Senate office building about 3 weeks ago or so. And there were probably 30 members of Congress there, and this was a good thing. But I did not come away from that with a sense that they had intention to really stand up for the community, you know, by actually defunding and reining in ICE. And actually, I think they should be abolished, frankly. Nakima, do you want to address that as well? The question was about do we think Congress people are doing enough?
Congress is absolutely not doing enough. They have put politics ahead of people, and it's really disheartening specifically to see Republican members of Congress weaponize their power through their silence. Congress established ICE. Congress is supposed to have oversight of ICE. Congress funds ICE. And yet they have allowed this lawlessness to happen in the state of Minnesota. They have allowed the Trump administration to wage war on American citizens, on residents of Minnesota, on women, on men, and on children, and they have done absolutely nothing about it. And it's also shameful that Democrats, some of them have sided with Republicans at this time. They have let down the American people, and they do not deserve to be in these seats if they're not going to uphold the law. And let's talk about the law for a second. In the black community, we hear a lot about law enforcement coming into community to contain crime. We see a lot of young black folks paraded right here in the Hennepin County Government Center, in the Juvenile Justice Center. We see them arrested on the streets, and we claim that we believe in law and order. We claim that we believe in the rule of law. Well, how does that apply to these lawless thugs called ICE agents and federal agents who have been allowed to engage in documented violence over and over again? And we cannot forget the fact that they are specifically engaging in violence against women. Remember, Renee Good was a woman, a wife, and a mother. Remember, the woman who was thrown on the ground by federal agents who Alex Preddy was trying to rescue. He saw a woman in distress. He saw a woman being brutalized. He stepped up to do what our local elected officials and law enforcement would not do, and it cost him his life. And what did Renee Good and Alex Preddy get in return? Lies from Kristi Noem and the federal government, calling them domestic terrorists, making up facts. These are the things that happen to the black community over and over and over again when law enforcement kills someone. The white community is finally seeing what we've been saying all along, how government cover-ups happen, how those in positions of power lie and manipulate and saturate the media with false information, and how the public believes it hook, line, and sinker. So I'm hoping that people understand this is a part of a pattern. We're dealing with the federal government now, but this is the type of oppression and repression and violation of our rights that we've been dealing with for hundreds of years. So we need to see a shift. We need to see Congress step up to the plate or get out of the way. There are young people who are passionate about justice, freedom, and equality who could be in the seats of some of these geezers who are just collecting a paycheck and waiting on a pension and not doing right by the American people. It's completely unacceptable.
Thank you. Good job.
Since Tom Homan took over the ICE operations here, national media has framed it as less violent and calmer here in the Twin Cities. Not what I've been experiencing. What can you say to that?
First of all, Tom Homan is no better than Bovino or anybody else who has been sent here by the federal government. We know that they're engaging in lies and authoritarianism. They're misleading the public, and they could immediately get these ICE agents and federal agents out of the state of Minnesota, yet they refuse to do so. They have tried to manipulate the
Yeah, I can talk about that. I'm Kate from Don't Believe It. And all of us should be very suspicious of what the federal government, what Tom Homan is saying. Look, the Department of Homeland Security budget will end. They'll run out of money on Friday. Do you think it's a coincidence that now they're saying, oh, we'll pull out? I don't believe that. And if you look at it in other cities like Chicago, Portland, Charlotte, and LA, people are still getting picked up by ICE. People are still getting deported from those cities, even though big metro surges there ended. It's not going to end. I would love it if it would. I don't think it will, because ICE was given too damn much money. ICE has money to have people here and in Charlotte and in LA and Chicago and keep the pressure on all these cities and states that happen to be Democratic. ICE is not going to just go away. We have to stay on our guard. We have to make sure that people are still protecting our neighbors. And we also have to push our elected officials right now, our senators, everybody in Minnesota can call Tina Smith and Amy Klobuchar and say, do not fund Department of Homeland Security at all until we get actual word ICE is out of everywhere.
And just real quick, even if they are for once telling the truth about ICE getting out of Minnesota, what about the damage that's already been done? What about these ICE agents who murdered innocent American citizens? Where is the accountability? What about ICE agents who have violated people's rights, who've dragged them through the streets, who've beaten and attacked and stomped people? What about the harm to children in our community that ICE has caused? So it is not enough for them to get out. Yes, they need to get out. But yes, they also need to be held immediately accountable for the significant harm that they have caused to the people of Minnesota.
I'd also like to remind people that Tom Homan is the man who set the quotas that have caused ICE agents to come here and arrest people willy-nilly, grabbing people, that might look Hispanic or look Somali or whatever. They have come here and done that. Why? Because he set a quota and he has guaranteed them bonuses for meeting that quota. This is Tom Homan. This wasn't Kristi Noem. This was Tom Homan. So that's who we have here playing Let's Make a Deal. We don't trust him. We don't believe him. We are fighting back, and we're going to continue to stand. And I am very happy to let you know that Jaylani Hussein, the executive director of CARE Minnesota, was in fact able to make it today, and so we're going to ask him to come up and speak. Welcome, Jaylani.
I want to just echo what everybody have already said, and I want to add to that by saying Minnesotans are not fooled at all. We know exactly what is happening. The fact that this drawdown is even being contemplated and it being happening is because Minnesotans have stood up for their neighbors. And we know politicians have not stood up for Minnesota, including Governor Walz. He needs to stand up for Minnesota. Minnesotans have shown the rest of the nation how you can stand up for your neighbors. We have shown our resiliency and, most importantly, our humanity. But in this moment, what we are seeing is a political shift. The Republicans have realized that ICE and their attack and their brutality have shifted the nation. For the first time now, over 80% of Americans do not approve the actions of ICE. That is a testament of American history that Minnesotans have created, and they're trying to bury that under the rubble by trying to shift America away from the disaster that ICE is and the engagement of this president to turn away from real challenges that are happening in America toward this particular nightmare that we're all facing. At this moment, as I speak to you today, every single day we hear of Minnesotans who are still locked up, even though the federal government has already decreed that they should be out through habeas petitions. We still have many families who are missing their loved ones in Texas and others. Some we hear of and some we forget to even hear from them in days. This system has been catastrophically impactful to all of us. And I want people to also know we are learning of even more abuses. I'm not here today to share some of that as some of the details are still being worked out, but we're learning about more abuses that ICE is engaging, particularly against vulnerable populations. And every single day as we learn about that, we're also learning that Minnesota elected officials are secretly meeting with Tom Homan to figure out a way for a political change of the winds. As you all heard, businesses are suffering. Our community is suffering. Our schools nearly have 1/3 of its students attending. We have a significantly impacted everything. And this building, which used to be a safe haven, a place for justice, a place for people who have been wronged, is no longer safe. At any moment, ICE could come and take anybody from this building. And also in conjunction with Hennepin County Sheriff, we have lost the opportunity and the moment right now to hold these elected officials accountable. As you heard, not only do we have the Senate that has to hold the line against funding for DHS, which ends this week, but also locally. Yet, we've heard about potential investigation of the murder of Alex Perry. What about Renee Good? It's been now 30 plus days and still not a single charge presented against the murderers who've murdered Renee Good, Mr. Ross, and others who were involved in that day, who have not been charged. In fact, Pam Bondi today said that she will not even consider or even talk about the victims of both Alex and Renee. And we know that justice is being delayed, and this is part of that challenge. How can you negotiate with Tom Homan when a Minnesotan is dead? Minnesotans are dead. Not only just the two that we know, but the others who have died in custody of ICE agents in prisons. How can you negotiate without starting with an actual accountability and an investigation to the murders of Alex and Renee? How can you even start to have a conversation about drawdown when we know exactly what is happening right now? That is nothing about the actual brutality of ICE, but other than the fact that the political winds have shifted and Americans are now standing up for their neighbors versus standing up for ICE. This is a shame moment, and that is why we are begging Minnesotans who continue to stand up for your neighbors. This is not the moment to turn around and retreat. This is a moment to double down and call for justice for Renee Good and Alex Jones. This is a moment to tell Governor Walz, to tell the leadership of this state, Minnesota is leading, stand with us, do not retreat in this moment. And finally, I want to say this very clearly to everyone. There will be a lot of pieces to be picking up after this moment. But the one thing we should all hold our head up high is we stood the test. We took the heat. We took weeks and weeks of attacks against our community. But I am begging you, for the first time in this country, we have an opportunity to fix the immigration system that is inhumane, that has taken advantage of the weakest and sometimes the hardest working people in this country. We know the work that immigrants are facing, and this type of chasing immigrants around and making them feel that somehow they're not American, when we know the majority of people in this country, outside of the Native Americans and the forced enslavement of African Americans, everyone else came here through an immigration story. And it is time for Americans to say we demand an immigration reform. That should be what comes out of this incredibly painful moment in our nation's history, and particularly Minnesotans. And that is what should be on our minds as we fight in this moment to protect our neighbors. ICE is still around. ICE is still picking people up. There's an incident that took place in St. Paul. We'll learn more details about it. So there's still a lot going on. We need everybody to stay guard. We need everybody to stay focused. And we tell the politicians, listen to the people, because you were elected by the people. And the Minnesota people stand up for their neighbors in this moment.
And they're also targeting legal observers.
That's right. On Saturday at the protest, and this was a peaceful protest, the state troopers and Hennepin County sheriffs roughly arrested several people, including legal observers, marked legal observers that wear the green hats, that are there observing. They're not participating, they're just documenting. We have a First Amendment right to document police conduct. This is an important right. We need to stand up and protect that. And so, again, more people that are facing federal charges for no good reason, but the community is stepping up to defend those people, and you can believe we will. And so I want to say one more thing, which is to thank you to all the media for all the kind of putting up with, we moved here, we moved there, and I especially want to say thank you to Gary for providing that nice hand. So thank you again. Is there any further questions? We appreciate you continuing to pay attention to this important issue. It's important because the community is the ones who are standing up and fighting back. It's sad to us that our public officials do not do the same, but we are here to demand that they will. So thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Lots of hoop-de-doo. Let me get away with your purse. Oh my God, that would be bad, wouldn't it?
Back at it.
All right, everyone, give me a minute. I'm just getting my mic here. Okay. All right, how's everyone doing? Sorry for the tech issues. We're going to get that situated, figure that out. I'm going to be live again in just a few hours. It's going to be at one of the targets. Today's a national protest against Target. So there are a couple of targets in the Twin Cities that are going to be having a protest. So I'm going to make my way over there in a little bit. We still have a few hours, but that's going to be 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. Also, I want to provide some updates on the car crash that was caused by ICE. That was in St. Paul this morning. We don't have much details. We're still waiting for more information. But JT was able to send me some stuff. Right. So this morning around 10 a.m. Central, dozens of ICE agents were at the scene of a multi-car crash in St. Paul. That car crash happened right outside of Nina's Coffee Cafe. The intersection is Western Avenue North and Shelby Avenue. One person was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. The extent of their injuries are unknown, and it's unknown if anybody else was hurt. But one person was taken to the hospital. So here's another update that federal agents were chasing a person in a car until a car crashed. The person was hurt but expected to survive, according to St. Paul police. So we'll keep getting some info on that and update you. Okay. Let's see if we could interview Jelani while he's still here. But if you haven't done so already, you could hit the like button, share this. We had some tech issues, so we're gonna piece together this the things that I recorded when the stream went down. Those speakers that were cut out. I got that recorded, so we're gonna piece it together properly. Hey, Jelani. Hey, do you have time for a quick talk? Yeah. So I guess I'll come over here.
Right.
Right. What's that? No, you're okay right there.
How did you get them to Michelle? How did you get them to quiet down? Huh? How did you get them to quiet down?
I don't know. The guys did. We were going to go outside, and then they said, "You guys can't be outside." And we said, "Yeah, you got to do something out here." Yeah, I've been in attorney for over 2 decades. Maybe they fed us some food. I don't know. A law professor.
So I asked this question to Nikema, and then you walked over. But since Tom Homan took over the operations here, national media has kind of left, and they're portraying this as calm and less violent now. That's not the case that I've been seeing. I've been on the street documenting everything. Your experience being here in the Twin Cities, is it less violent? And what your experience? What have you seen?
In fact, they're becoming more dangerous. We think they're becoming more dangerous partially because we're seeing them behaving a lot different than when they did in the past, where in the past you saw less coordination between local police and ICE. Now we're starting to see Hennepin County Sheriff and others actually participate in patrolling and serving individuals to them. We just saw a chaotic scene, videos from here 2 days ago or yesterday, and then we saw another one that last week similar, where they're coming into the courthouse and grabbing people. Some people who are U.S. citizens, who they picked up. I know they picked up a Somali man in Dakota County. Or also Hennepin County, I believe, another Hennepin County courthouse. So they're becoming more chaotic. But what Homan's plan was to create the perception that somehow this drawdown means less engagement, that things are not escalating, they're de-escalating, and eventually this will cease to exist. But the reality is, as these numbers are expected to go down, it's becoming more chaotic. And I also think that the element of what it's been happening has yet to be resolved. They are still taking people. They're not adhering to the law. They still have people captive who should be out by court order and are still kept in. They're still picking people up. Just this past week, they specifically targeted Somali Americans or Somali immigrants who are refugees, moved their court dates. So they literally pulled every Somali out of the line and created a new line for them versus the rest of the people. Because usually you're part of based on your case, then as your case come in, you get submitted to the line. But now they pulled all of these cases for re-review, and we're seeing that this kind of targeting. We're also learning of other acts that they have done, including keeping people in hotels and other things. So we're trying to verify some of these stories. So this is the plan. The plan is to shift the conversation away from Minnesota by any way that they could, and it's starting to happen. But it's still dangerous. Minneapolis, we could potentially have another person killed. We know we heard somebody got injured today, and we'll learn more about how horrible this incident was. But at the end of the day, Minneapolis is no safer than it was a week ago when they said 700 people are withdrawing, which is still chaotic. In fact, we're now seeing them be more bold, take off their masks and come into the middle of the buildings and literally drag people out. And so this is just another reminder that the focus has to be on this community. And as even as the numbers draw out, we are expecting them to go other places, and that's why we need everyone in their communities to be organized. You do not want to be waking up to an ICE raid in your community without having some level of organizing. And that is what gave Minnesota and continues to give Minnesota some hope. It took us nearly 2 months now to be at the level we are. We don't expect that they will have these large numbers in other places, but the surgical small teams that are as deadly as any will probably exist in other communities. And the more we continue to respond and the more communities are organized, more communities are organized, the more likely we can be an effective way to respond to the impacts of what's happening. And I think in this moment also we need to think about fixing the immigration problem, not just trying to address it, not trying to get ICE out of Minnesota when we know they could go other places, and not to just treat ICE as an independent agency when we know the entire system of immigration is flawed. And we're learning every day also in Minnesota the serious daily impact financially in every industry is impacted. No one has been spared, and that is also why you're seeing even some corporations becoming a lot more softer on this issue.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to talk about the new tactics. So I've been documenting the raids and seeing where ICE is going into communities. So now, like you said, they're not masked. They're actually wearing less equipment, less tactical gear. They're trying to blend in more as regular civilians, but instead of tear gas and pepper spray, it looks like they're going right to the gun. They immediately pull out the gun and target observers, people who are watching and documenting them. So they've come up to my car and questioned me, what pros you with, and stuff like that. But that's what I've seen. I've seen those tactics where they're not pulling out tear gas or pepper spray, but it's going right to the firearm. Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. The strategies have changed. They're trying to figure out a way to look less tactical because they've seen that people are responding to them when they are actually wearing gear that look like they were in the middle of a war zone. And so now they're removing that, but they're still as deadly. In fact, more deadlier now because with a lot of them having, some of them, the ones we've seen recently, had not masks on. Even though when they go outside, they put back on a mask, which is interesting because. But anyways, so and also not visible badges, which is more dangerous because law enforcement have to self-identify that they are somewhat law enforcement. That no one knows if that person is actually mugging a person versus somebody who's actually engaging in a lawful, at least some sort of a legal entity. And so, yes, the situation is a lot worse. But the political effect of saying a drawdown, we're starting to see, as you talked about, traditional media looking for other stories and moving away from Minnesota. Minnesota is a flyover state. This is not where their big base is at. So a lot of them are traveling here and they're hoping to get out of here. So again, that's another essence of why we need independent media, but also we need our community and everyone eyes on Minnesota until this fight is won. Not only in Minnesota, but across the country.
What would accountability look like for what happened? Like they're leaving the Twin Cities, but this community is still broken from what took place these past 2 months. What would accountability look like?
Well, first of all, I think the most important thing is that we need people to understand that President Trump has found an army to send at anybody. So the concept that this is only an immigration fight when we know ICE is a tool being used by the president to create political fear and to create a sense of, law and order from his perspective. He tried to do this with the military, and he's even trying to attempt to do the same thing with the military. I think there is an expectation now that, and we've seen now the stalemate with our state leadership failing to bring charges when they would do that for anybody. They're saying they keep making the excuse that the federal government has the files, when we have, for the first time in history, more observers on the street recording than actual anybody cams or anything else. So we have the footage of exactly what happened from multiple angles. There's enough to charge, but they're hesitant to charge it. And so accountability starts with layers of accountability. The people showing up and standing up. It counts with when they do commit crimes and when they violate, for them to be held accountable by law enforcement. And then on top of that, the court systems to hold them accountable to the injustice that they're creating. But finally, the people make decisions about the laws, whether this agency continues to exist, whether they're funded, whether this agency will commit these kind of crimes in our neighborhoods. And so the people have to hold their elected officials accountable. Accountability starts with those who are paying and who are funding these streams, who are creating the policies that are bringing these people to your community. So there is layers of accountability, and it starts with everyone holding themselves accountable, that they should be at least a witness, because these people are committing crimes. They're violating constitutionally protected rights. They are coming to homes without warrants. They are arresting people who are U.S. citizens. And they are going after journalists and protesters. So they're not just engaging with just criminals, as they say. No, they're engaging with everybody. Everyone is a threat, and everyone is responsible to hold that accountability against them.
One more question. A few people I spoke to at Whipple, now it's, when you go to Whipple, they're not protesting the federal agents. They're up against the state and local police. And, people were very upset because it took, from George Floyd, it took years to rebuild that trust and the relationship again with the community police. Can you talk about that a little bit? How people feeling like they have no trust in the state and local police anymore?
Well, I think the first and foremost is when local police start to behave like ICE, then people cannot differentiate if they're ICE. There is no reason for them to create a safely, orderly manner where people can peacefully protest. But when all of a sudden you have Hennepin County mass arresting people, and deploying tear gas and creating an unsafe situation, the question now begs is, are they doing it for the public or are they doing it for ICE? And that, I think, is a major issue, because that when you have these types of incidents, you're not de-escalating. You're inviting more people to show up to those protests. And those people who are going to show up eventually are already expecting a violent counter protest. And so when you create an environment that's much more peaceful, you can keep it peaceful to allow for people to do what they need to do. But if you create it to be more violent, there's expecting even more violence to come. And so, and especially for Minnesota, like you said, in Minnesota we have dealt with the murder of George Floyd, and there has been a journey back to building community police relations, and nowhere we're near anywhere we would say we would happy with it. But the fact that in this moment, yet again, especially when they're no longer the law enforcement agency killing people, the local law enforcement should try to use this opportunity to try to build better relationships instead of mimicking and defending ICE and creating an environment where they are almost like it. I mean, at the beginning of this operation, the local sheriff, DeWanna Witt, used profanities to describe how horrible ICE was. But now, as ICE is drawing down, her 8 officers are now behaving in a manner that is counterproductive, not only that, dangerous to the public and anyone who's peacefully protesting, and violating constitutionally protected rights. And so just to say you can't do this when you have the law on your side, you're peacefully protesting, you're not coming and climbing over a wall, you're not destroying property, how then all of a sudden your existence and presence is considered to be dangerous or violent? And that's where that slippery slope is for local law enforcement. And if they think somehow that they are going to continue to do that, first and foremost, this is a community now where everybody got phones. They can't claim something. There's enough footage to cover everything that happened in those days. And maybe the reckoning is not in this moment, but there will be all of the evidence put together, and there will be an opportunity to hold back some of these officers who engage in the way they are right now.
Thank you very much, Jelani. Is there anything else you would like to say?
No, I think the community, we need everybody to keep eyes on Minnesota. For anyone who's watching outside of Minnesota, the best thing you can do is organize your community, but the second thing you can do is make sure you uplift the work that we're doing. Social media is not on our side. Revolution is not going to be televised or social media unless the people who are connected directly to the folks in Minnesota choose to make it a priority to uplift our voices and our stories, so that way our response and our ability to share what we're doing is much more easier for folks to learn and be inspired, and also recognize that we cannot rely on traditional news to tell our story, and that is why independent journalists are critically important, but also at the same time viewers who are sharing information and what content we share, how we use social media is even more essential now.
Thank you very much, Jelani. Great seeing you again. Yep, take care. All right, guys, so I'm going to shut this down because we're going to get ready to go live at the Target protest in just a few hours. Let me just make sure we have that. I believe that stream is set for 6 p.m. Eastern. 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If you are not yet a member or a subscriber, subscribe now. You'll get that notification. But we cannot do this without your support. We are powered by you, the people, and that is who we do this for, to inform you people what's happening on the ground. Even when all the national media and all the other outlets disappear and go back home and cover whatever other stories they want to cover, we know this is important, because this is going to spread all over the country. We were in Chicago. We were in Charlotte, North Carolina. We've been to Alligator Alcatraz down in Miami, L.A., New York. We are on the ground everywhere we need to be, wherever it's important to be, and doing what no other outlet is doing. And we just have a small team we're trying to build. So if you can, support us. It's as low as $5 a month. There are other tiers that you can pay to support us, but that is the lowest, $5 a month, 16 cents a day. Go to statuscoup.com/join. I have been here for over 2 months now, documenting everything from before when the surge started, before Renee was killed, before Alex was killed. I was here on the ground. I got frostbite in early December from covering a raid where 2 workers were trapped on the roof. The community came out and they were stuck up there for hours. Ice wouldn't let them down. They wouldn't let people bring them blankets. They froze up there. They had to be taken to the hospital. I went to the hospital because I had frostbite. My fingers got damaged. I'm still dealing with that pain. So we put in the work. We risk our lives. We risk, spending time with our friends, our family. And, I basically live here. And I love the community here. Everybody's been great. Very supportive. They come up to us and they tell us how much they appreciate our work and what we're doing here in the Twin Cities, and just telling us that we give them hope, and that is why we do this, to give people hope that you don't have to look to the mainstream media anymore. You don't have to look at the networks to tell you what the news is, what's happening. Come to us. We'll give it to you. We'll tell you how it is and what's going on. And we will be there. We'll be on the ground more than anybody else will. So we can only do that with your support. We spent over $30,000 from having to pay me, pay JT, freelancers, hotels, airfare, food, rental car, equipment, cold weather gear. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of money and a lot of time, and it's we're a small team. We're trying to build up. So whatever you could do to support us, we really appreciate it. And that's all I got for right now. Any updates from the car crash, I will fill you in when I go live again. Again, I'm going to be live 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you are subscribed to our channel. All right, everyone. You'll see me in a few hours. All right? Bye.